this generation is so much better than the generation before, and also better than the generation before that.
Yeah.
It's all about having these proper convos now, which is frustrating sometimes for old school parents who just want it the way it is because they haven't got time to deal with you. Well, hey, parenting is not easy. So big, deep breath.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. A quick note before we begin. In today's conversation, we will be talking about suicide, and we do understand that this can be a difficult topic, so please take care when listening to this one. Here in Australia, if you would like some support, if you're feeling distressed or you know someone who is or is thinking about suicide, support is available through Lifeline on 13 11 14. And if you are listening from another country, as I know many of you do, please seek out your local crisis services. And the thing about suicide is it might be hard to talk about, but we have to. It is more important than ever that we do, because this might floor you, this statistic, but here in Australia, somebody attempts to take their life every 8 minutes. And I just want that to sink in. So in the time that I'm talking to today's guest, there will be multiple attempts, and thankfully, not everybody succeeds in their attempt to take their life. But what we do know, and what's equally shocking, is that a staggering 7 men and 2 women actually do succeed in taking their life every single day. I am so delighted to be joined by Gus Worland today. He lost his dear friend, mentor and father figure to suicide, and it actually sparked such a devotion in him to dedicate his life to saving lives. And he's on a mission with the rest of his team at Gotcha for Life to reduce Australian suicide deaths to 0. After the success of his 3-part ABC series, Man Up. So please take yourself away after you've listened to this and take a look at that on the ABC. He actually really highlighted the emotional isolation that many men experience and decided to co-found Gotcha for Life, which is really an organisation. It's incredible. I can't wait for you to learn more about it. But absolutely dedicated to helping people build their mental fitness, to make sure they're not alone, and also to know how to reach out for help. So if you're not already familiar with Gus's brilliant work, he's also a regular panellist on Channel 9's Wide World of Sport, author of Boys Do Cry, and host of the Not an Overnight Success podcast. And of course, you've got the new podcast, Gus, the Gotcha for Life Mental Fitness Conversations podcast. So after that huge introduction, I just want to say a really very warm welcome to you and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Jodi. Yes, sometimes when you read that out, I'm like, I wonder who she's talking about, because you're just like you just get on and do it, right? You're busy, you've got various hats to wear, and you just crack on and opportunities pop up and you go, yep, that sounds good, so I'll have a go at that. That might help. So, yeah, very proud of the work that we've been doing over the last 9 years, and but celebrate everything in a New York minute and get back on the horse and go again, because those numbers that you spoke about, when I first heard them, I had to Google them. There's no way that in Australia we could have those type of numbers, especially the one that we don't talk about a lot, which is the 1 every 8 minutes someone attempts. It just made me realise that, real work had to be done, and I had an opportunity to do it. So I've got a very beautiful, loving wife who is an ex-school teacher who is right there with me, and we love doing it together. And now we've got a team at Gotcha for Life that are helping every day. So I'm very proud of what we've done. You
really are. And whilst we'll come to some of the resources, towards the end of our conversation, this being part 1 of our conversation, that I cannot applaud you enough for the app that you have designed. And one detail I noticed, which can sometimes be just a little bit of a sticking point for people, is you don't even have to sign up. You can just jump right in and get started. And which I have done many of the activities and listened to many of the kind of learning modules, and bite size, they're easy to listen to. I've learned so much, but you encourage us to take action. So if nothing else, I know that this is going to be one of the answers to this next question I've got for you, but please download the app, the Gotcha for life mental fitness app. It's a free download and you can just dive straight in and get started. But my first question being, what do you want listeners to this conversation and our conversation next week as well? What do you want them to take away from listening to us chat today?
Yeah, Jodi, I want it to be really, really simple, and I'm trying to simplify mental health by calling it mental fitness and trying to make it a positive spin and give people exercises just like on the app that they can put into their own day and go, oh, that didn't work, so I'll try something else, or that really helped me, and that's great as well. And to realise it's okay to bumble around and not to have all the answers and so forth. So that's the first thing. But secondly, don't worry alone. There's so many of us, boys, girls, men, women, and everyone in between, that in Australia at the moment are worrying alone about things. And if you can get enough emotional muscle out of this chat or enough of a bit of a shove along to stick your hand up and ask for help, that would be fantastic. And if people can finish this podcast and download the app, but really think, who is my village? And am I looking after that village as well, as good as I can? And would my village come to me and ask me for anything, even if it's slightly uncomfortable? And would I be okay talking to my village about something that's a bit uncomfortable? Once we start having more of those conversations, we practice them more, we do them more, it'll become easier. And then we've got all these communities and villages around that are just connected, and we can have these warts and all conversations. So that would be absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to take a few generations to do it, but if we can do it in a couple of chats like this on the podcast, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, look, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because there's so much need out there, and so many people they just don't stop to think, who can I turn to? And one of the things that you called on all of us to do who were watching your TED Talk was think of that person in your life. And even just when you're feeling okay, you might not be in a dark time now, you might not be struggling, but identify who your people are. And what I can also say to add to this is that people like to help. We can't help if we don't know that somebody's in need of it. And so if you don't feel like you've got someone in your village, then start thinking about who you might bring in. And there are also the helplines as well. So you're never alone in what you're going through. And when it comes to sharing vulnerably, I know you took a chance, Brekkie radio host where there's lots of laughs and lots of comps and lots of lighthearted kind of stuff. And you took a chance to share what you'd been through after losing your dear friend, mentor, and beautiful go-to guy, as you called him, Angus. The response that you got through the phone lines for the next 90 minutes, as you shared in your talk, was astonishing. And it just goes to show, doesn't it? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what happened? But just, it really emphasises the fact that when one person takes that chance, other people see that as an open door to sort of like get on board and start sharing as well, don't they?
Absolutely. We've been told to man up and shut up and get on with it, really. And what I like to say now is, like, let's human up and speak up. Let's start having some conversations that are a little bit vulnerable. And certainly in the TED Talk, I wanted to explain that I learned a lesson that morning on Brekkie Radio. Firstly, I was brave enough to stick my hand up in the production meeting where I was very much the third wheel of three hosts and say, hey, I wouldn't mind having, a chat about something that we wouldn't normally talk about, a bit of vulnerability, rather than talking sport and jokes and that type of thing. And then my team saying, yep, we'll get behind you. And then I spoke openly about my friend and that I hadn't handled his death very well. And we went to a song and the producer came in and said, all the lines are flashing. Like every line is someone saying they want to thank you for telling the story, but also they've got their own story. And that made me realize how many people worry alone. And on just that small radio station, on that small show, we had 90 minutes of back-to-back phone calls. And some of those conversations were very difficult. Some of them were, you could tell the words were there, but they weren't coming out. They were getting stuck in people's throats. And eventually, and you were like, come on, get there. And eventually they'd tell their story. And you just felt so empowered by these people being vulnerable. And it made me realize how many of us worry alone, and we need an invitation sometimes to talk about the stuff that traditionally in Australia we've been told just to deal with on our own patch. Like everyone's got their dramas, so deal with your own, and just bring your happy face to these conversations, and that's killing us. So from that moment on, the Man Up program was started, and then Gotcha for Life was started. And now it's all about building emotional muscle so people do stick their hand up. And like you say, we're in crisis at the moment. Those numbers tell us that, but we're talking about prevention. Yeah. We're talking about building your village when you're a 1, 2, 3 out of 10 in terms of problems and issues. If you build that village when things are going well, then all of a sudden when things start going a little bit downhill or a bit south or a bit dark, well, you've got that group of people around you where you can ring them up and say, hey, can we have a walk tomorrow? I need to pick your brains on something. And it doesn't mean you then come up with the answer. Yeah. But what you do come up with is a plan to go, righto, you now know what I'm going through. I know what I'm going through. I've got all that crap out of my head. Let's go and find out the answer. And that is proper friendship. That is proper love. That is what I believe a proper relationship is about. Just not all the fun stuff and having a wine and a catch up at Christmas and Easter and on the weekends. It's all of that plus having in your hip pocket that type of relationship that you can go to when things start to go a little bit wonky. Yeah. Let's never get to the stage where it gets so wonky that we have to then go to the crisis. But if we do, all those things are there. They're beautifully funded. They do wonderful work. Well, let's start doing a bit of preventative stuff.
What you landed on before about you don't have to solve all the problems. If you're the person that somebody comes to or that you are the person reaching out, what you shared about just getting it off your chest, just speaking it out aloud. It's and I love to get a little bit into the research, and just a very, very quick stat is that when we actually say out loud how we're feeling, it actually reduces our psychological distress. It's the old name it to tame it, which people are really familiar with, but actually just saying it. But, you know, even with two dear friends last week, I was out to dinner with two dear girlfriends who I've known for, two of us met at Mother's Group. We pretty much burst into tears together in the car park walking in with our babies, and we knew we'd be friends forever. And, you know, we talk about real stuff, and one of the girls sort of shared something that's happening, you know, she's like, oh, I hate to bring the conversation down. I'm like, hang on a second, stop right there. This is what this is about. Like, come on, let's just dive in. Like, it is so human to feel. We hurt where we care. And every single person walking around, despite what the look on their face is like, despite what you might see on social media, everybody has their struggles, and it just takes you opening that door, which takes maybe a little bit of courage. You know, you can find your brave, and you will be so delighted and surprised as to how well you supported when you open the door. But Gus, what would you say to the person listening who is in that place right now, feeling like things are never going to get better, feeling really hopeless, has been maybe, you know, had those ideas about, you know, maybe it'd be better if I wasn't here anymore, and they're not sure kind of where to turn, but they're listening now and they're thinking, right, this is just what I needed. What would you say to that person listening?
Yeah, I would say to them that absolutely, I know how you feel, and it's absolutely natural to be feeling that way. So don't give yourself any drama about that. But the best thing to do is to share it with someone, whether it's someone you know, a coach, a teacher, if it's a younger person, or a work colleague, or an old friend, or a parent, whoever that is, or a complete stranger. Yeah. You know, go to someone, you know, who's a counselor or something like that. Just tell them, get the weight of whatever is on your mind out of your head or off your shoulders. Like you said earlier, as soon as you just verbalize it, it may not quite seem as bad as it does in your head, but also you'll probably realize that nearly all of us are feeling very similar things, or have felt that at the time. And to deal with it by yourself is really, really very, very difficult. So get it out and get some help and support. And that's the greatest thing that we can do, is actually to find that someone so you don't worry alone. We are so good in this country at helping people when people ask us for help, but we're terrible at asking for help. So big deep breath and just go and ask for help. And that's the bravest thing that you can do. That's what I talk about is with mental fitness, is that we're building this emotional muscle. We're giving exercises to be able to stick your hand up and ask for help. It's not easy, but believe me, once you ask for help, it will get better, and you will then have a bit of a team or a village around you that can help you with whatever's going on. And I've had 1,000 conversations in the last year of just exactly like that, and people then coming to me and saying, I wish I'd done that earlier.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter if you've done it earlier or not. Do it today. Talk to someone today. I had a guy at a coffee shop the other day just break down. He was the barista. He walked over and gave me the biggest hug. And I was able to give him some support and a phone number to phone up and get some support. He then sent a note to me saying, I can't believe I was feeling the way that I was feeling. I can't believe I was thinking about doing what I was thinking of doing. One simple conversation just put me on a path that I know I'm not there yet, but gee, it's helped me. And that just gives me so much happiness because we do overcomplicate things, especially around mental health. We make it way too clinical, I believe. I think it's a human issue, and I think we can share it with other humans and they can help us and we can get out of most problems.
Yeah. Gosh, I can just picture the relief and the hope that young fellow, I don't know if he was young, actually. I'm picturing
He wasn't young. He wasn't young. Well,
no.
There's so many, Jodi, that I speak to that are 35 to 55 who look back on their lives and it's perhaps not quite gone as planned, and they start questioning things. And men in particular, that mulling over in our own brains can come up with some really, really poor decisions. And that's why I say just get it out loud. And then you realise, oh, perhaps it's not quite as bad. And then someone goes, well, here's something that might help you. And if you then dive in and lean into that process, then you can get the help and support that you need. And but Gotcha for Life is all about building that emotional muscle up at primary school level and at high school level, and now in corporations and sports clubs and stuff. It's more of a positive conversation about building emotional muscle. And that's what I'm really excited about, is actually making that like a subject in school. There's so many subjects that you just tick the box to get your ATAR to finish year 12. Well, let's start getting a subject in around what it takes to be a boy and a girl, what it takes to be a man and a woman, giving kids a little backpack of feeling all the feels, getting all those emotions. And the world is a very different place to the place that you and I grew up in, where we went to uni or went to school. We've got to learn from the youngsters, about what sort of dramas they're going through and the life that they're leading and stuff. And that's the type of conversations we should be having at the moment, and not feeling old school about teaching.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And, generations like ours, I'm a Gen Xer, and like you were saying about rub some dirt on it, just suck it up, just get on with it, and maybe parents saying, well, I went through this, and young kids are like, they just think you can't relate to them when you start kind of banging on about what you had to do. My dad used to say, I used to have to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow and all this kind of stuff. And you're just like, not really relevant, Dad. Don't really care. It's not about you. It's about me. And
that's right. And Dad, turn on your ears, Dad. But Dad's never been taught how to listen, because his dad, your grandfather, never taught him, or grandmother never taught him. So everyone's bumbling around with lots of love and lots of I got all the feels, but I don't quite know what to do about it. We saw 150,000 school kids last year, and we then surveyed them at the end. 72% said that they don't know how to talk to mum and dad about how they feel because they haven't got the words, right? So they don't feel comfortable, so they don't start the conversation, which means they've got mum and dads there that want to help and they love them and so forth, but might have some old school values, and not hearing from their children about how they truly feel. All they're hearing is, oh, yeah, I'm okay. It's not too bad. Yeah, good. Bit of a grunt here and a grunt there. We're missing all these lovely conversations that could be had because we haven't got the words. So that's what we have to learn. And that's why I think mental fitness and that positive conversation is just so important. And that's why we have to start at primary school, and we have to have it all the way through HSC and then at university and stuff as well, just to start learning some of this stuff, because I certainly didn't learn it. And my parenting has become, I believe, a lot better. My kids will tell me that since I've learnt this stuff. And parents, we want to help. We love our children. We love our young ones, but sometimes we don't quite know how to do it. And it comes across as your dad, walked up the hill, and I went to school in bare feet through the snow and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what are you talking about? And it's just all a big disconnect. And in the end, these conversations don't happen.
That's it. And they just feel like, all right, well, mum and dad don't understand, or they're always, using references that are irrelevant now. And, my daughter and I were having a conversation, Gus, about her screen time, because she has a limit of 3 hours of screen time a day, which I think is a huge amount, but she's 15 and a half.
big. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh, that's a lot, isn't it? All of her friends
Yeah.
have unlimited screen time. And so she's really good. We have really good conversations. And she said, Mum, it makes me anxious because when I'm connecting with my friends on the phone, and she'd much rather be in person, but she said, I feel like, oh, am I going to run out of time on a phone call, or how am I going to spend? She said, I'm anxious in the time that I have it, and she doesn't use it all every day necessarily. Sometimes she wants more, but and I said to her, you know what? I'm putting myself in my shoes of being 15, and she's looked at me and I said, hear me out, hang on. Hang on a second. I would go home and I can literally picture myself sitting under the countertop where you have like the breakfast bar. We didn't have any breakfast bar chairs. We just had the breakfast bar. I would tuck myself in under, lean there with the phone cord on full stretch, chatting to my friends after school. Because that's what I wanted to do.
Boyfriends, I'm assuming.
All the boyfriends. Mostly girlfriends. And my parents would say, you've been at school with your friends all day. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, there's just always more words. And, I said to her, you know what, I can relate, because if my parents had have said, you've got a limit on what you can do, I wouldn't have been able to relax into my conversations and just, chew the fat or whatever. And I said, I understand where you're coming from. Let's talk about what we can do and how we can kind of overcome this. And I really felt like it was the first time I really stopped and thought, what is this like for her? And it was such a breakthrough. It was so good. And like, that's just one example. But for parents listening who are thinking, right, okay, it's shocking to think so many kids aren't talking to their parents about how they're feeling. What can parents listening, because it's great you're talking to the kids, and no doubt, lots of parents are engaged in your programs through workplaces and various opportunities, but to the parents listening who are thinking, how can I open those doors? How can I make it more comfortable and easier for my kids to share how they're feeling, like how they're really feeling? What would your advice be?
Well, firstly, well done on having that convo with your daughter, because I think we're not having enough of those. And they're uncomfortable, right? Because you're going into an area where you don't necessarily know the answers. So you're showing some leadership with vulnerability, which is what I believe this is all about. So I'll give you an example. 15 years of age, my son, I'm doing the Man Up program. I'm learning every single day. I'm halfway through it going, well, I would have done this gig for nothing. I'm learning so much. I'm a better person because of it. And I really feel like it's going to be a cracking show. And he asked me a question one afternoon. And instead of me BSing him and telling him a porky and doing my best because I wanted to be the dad that had all the answers, I said to him, I actually don't know the answer to that, Jack. Yeah. And you should have seen his face. He was like, what do you mean? And I go, well, I might have told you some porcupines in the past as well, because I want to be the guy that has the answers for you, because I want you to come to me asking me questions, but I'm actually not 100% sure. But now that you've told me that you need to know, you and I can then work it out together. Yeah. He then went away and thought about that. He then came to me and said, Dad, I've got to tell you, I thought by the time I was 18, I needed to know who to vote for, what drink to have, how many drinks to have, drive my car, have my own passport, have my own stuff, or blah, blah, blah. And I said, mate, I'm still bumbling around in the dark, and so should you. And if I've set you up in any way to think that by a certain age you need to know everything, well, that's on me and Mum. And it changed the way that we then educated him and spoke to him and looked after him. And then the same with the two girls after, with Ella and Abby. And the girls said from that day, everything changed and everything became better for everyone. And so I suppose leading with some vulnerability to the parents listening now is really quite a difficult thing to do, but I think that's the way to do it. And also saying, I don't know. I don't know, and I'm switching my ears on to try to work out how I can help. And now we're a team and we can go off and find that stuff together. It goes against a lot of what we were taught by our parents and what our parents, our grandparents were getting taught. It's just doesn't come naturally to sort of say, I don't know. It's sort of, we sort of go, well, that's just the way it is. And in my house and all that stuff. And until you start paying your own bills, it's my rules and all that stuff. It just comes naturally. So many people said to me, oh, God, I'm starting to sound like my mother, or I'm starting to sound like my father. And you go, oh, what, I'm turning into them. Sometimes it's taken a moment to go, actually, I have no idea, but thank you for asking. Let's go and work this stuff out together. And then all of a sudden you're on the same team and stuff. And I think this generation is so much better than the generation before, and also better than the generation before that.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about having these proper convos now, which is frustrating sometimes for old school parents who just want it the way it is because they haven't got time to deal with you. Well, hey, parenting is not easy. So big, deep breath, suck it up, and realize that we're talking to a whole different generation in a whole different world to the one that we grew up in, and listening and being open to having a proper conversation and a bit of compromise is what it's all about.
Yes, being on the same team, which you said earlier, it's about if they realise that we don't have all the answers and that we can be a little bit vulnerable and share a little bit more openly about how we're feeling about things, about what might be going on. An example at my house was I was a bit anxious about a phone call I needed to make, and I sort of said to the kids, I'm feeling a bit anxious. I've got to make a phone call when we get home from school pickups. I might just need the television, volume down a little bit. And I said, you know what, I don't really feel like making it, but I'm going to make it because it's the right thing to do. I have to ask somebody a particular question and it's important. And then I made the phone call, and of course these things always go better than you predict they will because we worry so much. And then I came back and I said, I did it, and I felt like a little kid saying, I did it, but I said, I did that. And it turned out much better. And even just that was nothing to do with anything else other than me saying, hey, I'm a bit anxious. I'm going to do this hard thing. I did this hard thing and I feel better for it. And we've got lots of opportunities through life, don't we? Like day in and day out. And we don't have to get it right all the time. And there's no certain words. We don't have to have these scripts. Just this idea that if we can share a little bit more openly, more regularly about just being human and human ups and downs, age-appropriate information and details as our kids go through the ages. But it's a really beautiful place to start, isn't it?
Look, Dr. Jodes, I feel like I'm getting all formal on you there.
Call me Jodes. I love that.
Jodes. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the greatest example you can give your kids, right? So they're sitting there and they might have, by the time you said it and whatever, 10 seconds later, they've forgotten about it. But then they see you on the phone or they see you wander out to make it, and then you come back in and show that I did it and it worked out okay. That's a moment, right? They remember and go, oh, Mum's strong. Mum was vulnerable. It all worked itself out. Perhaps I can say to my mum, I had a difficult day today, and get your help and support. You're a team, right? You would do anything for your children. You do anything for the people that you love. So, that's the best way, because every kid from a very young age is listening to everything and they are seeing everything. And if they see that and see a positive that comes out of it, they're more likely to do that themselves. And that's what we want, right? Like I speak to people all the time. Be the person in that person you love's life that they can come up to you and talk to you, warts and all, without any fear of judgment. You want to be that person. At the moment, you could be, but you haven't made that connection to be. And that's where we have to be a little bit better. But it takes time because we haven't been taught it and we haven't practiced it enough. So it's all a bit awkward and it's all a bit uncomfortable. Well, we have to start having a few more of these uncomfortable, awkward convos. So eventually it becomes a bit more normal. And that's really what it's all about, normalizing and humanizing this rather than making it anything that's too clinical or too health-based, because it's just really about being the best human you can be for the people that you love, your village.
That's right. And you might just save a life. In fact, you probably will, and you might not ever know about it. That's the beauty of this. There's so much more to talk about. But before we finish up for part one of this conversation, please can you direct our listeners to your website, to your TED Talk, and to the brilliant app that you can just get downloaded and get onto straight away?
Yeah, the mental fitness app. So if you just put mental fitness app into Google or Gotcha for Life app into Google, it'll pop up. And as you said, Jodes, it's we wanted to take away all the barriers. We don't want people to have to fill in all these forms and think they're going to be smashed every day with marketing and blah, blah, blah. It's really easy to do. It takes you 30 seconds. So that's the first thing. Gotchaforlife.org gives you all the other details and so forth that you need about the work that we do. And then for the TED Talk, if you just put Gus TED Talk, so GUS TED Talk, lucky enough, I actually got a message this morning, and I'll read it out because it was I want to get it right.
Yeah.
my TED Talk has now been turned into 12 different languages with AI, and it's actually my voice, but 12 different types of language. And I was talking to my mates about it because I basically wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed at my school. In fact, I did 2-unit general English, which was sort of the most basic of basic English. Yeah. And I was in the 6th class out of 7th, where the 1, 2, 3 got to do French and German and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So they thought I'd struggle enough with English. Well, now I can say that I now am fluent in 12 different languages as of this morning. So I've just like that remarkably become extremely good at languages. So even if English isn't your first language, there's 12 different types now. So that'll all be up on the TED site pretty soon.
Oh, congratulations. It is a brilliant talk. It is from the heart. It is like I didn't I drop you a message, a DM on Instagram just to say like I was like tearing up listening because what you say in that TED Talk, it's such a powerful message. It is such a powerful message, and it is a simple message, and you also give us something to do right there in that moment. It's 12 minutes, not longer than 13 minutes. So please,
Thank you.
Head off, gotchaforlife.org. We've got the mental fitness app, and and of course the TED Talk, and there's so much more to talk about. So thank you so much, Gus, for your time, and look forward to picking up again with you for part 2.
No worries.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.